Welcome back to the VHS Vault. I'm VHS Jace. Next to me is Jason Roy Gaston. And if you can't tell by Jason's backdrop what movie we are doing today, Jason, can you inform them what we've been watching this week?
Well, it looks like a Fleischer Superman short, but it's not. This is the movie that was all the rage whenever it first came out and then disappeared like a fart in the wind, and we've never heard of it again. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure this is the first time in years you've heard the words Sky Captain and the World of Tomorrow.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And that leads us into our first segment, and that is memories. Now, memories of this one, Jason, I'm going to start it out. You talked about it was all the rage. I remember the trailer being all the rage. I remember that trailer hitting, and it was around the Spider-Man 2002 mark, I think, 2003 mark when they released the trailer, and it was massive because people were jaw-dropped that this guy who just worked in a special effects house had made this movie, which we're talking about, Kerry Conan. Yeah, and I remember the release of it, and I also remember it not being at the cinemas about 2 weeks later. But when I first saw it at the cinema with my son, I saw it on the first weekend. I loved it. I loved it then. It was one of the, because it was just so different, visually. Well, not different because there's nothing original about this film, but I just remember having a really good time the first time I saw it. How about you, Jace?
I pretty much the same reaction from me. I just remember seeing the trailer thinking, oh, wow, that looks different, because I had just been burned by another movie you've probably never heard of in years, and that is The Lost Skeleton of Cadavra. I had seen that movie and thinking it was going to be, oh, this is going to be a fun little throwback, and it wasn't. It wasn't a fun little throwback. It was just annoying and stupid. And then I saw this one and I thought, that looks good, but I'm still remembering how The Lost Skeleton of Cadavra hit me. I went to theaters and I remember watching it and being somewhat underwhelmed. I thought it was a beautiful movie, thought it was a fun movie, but plot-wise, I just remember thinking, there's nothing special about it. Has my opinion changed? Because this is the first time I've seen this movie since 2006. You'll have to wait and find out.
Absolutely. All right, so we did talk a little bit about behind the scenes. This is directed by really a relatively unknown person at the time called Kerry Conan. But it really was the baby of Jude Law and his partner at the time, was it Sadie Frost, I believe, who really were the big producers in this, helped get the financing and kind of get it together. So I do believe a lot of it was completely, unless I'm wrong, completely filmed on a green screen, not an AR wall or anything like green screen. And if you're thinking, Jason, this is like 2002 when they're filming this, that's a fairly significant leap in technology at the time. I also think it was the first time since Rocketeer that I remember something where they tried to do a alternate universe, slightly heightened reality of the 1940s, where technology had maybe was a bit more than it actually was in reality. And so the visual style, creating this visual style for them was apparently very important. And look at it. It's absolutely, the production design absolutely holds up, Jason. It is a gorgeous throwback to Flash Gordon, serialized television, to any kind of 1950s sci-fi kind of film. It's just so beautiful to look at, isn't it? And it continues to be. And that was the big thing I noticed when I went back and watched this, was I forgot how much love and care was put into the visual style of it.
This is certainly one of the most stylistic movies I have seen in a long time. And to answer the question that I put forth earlier, just to keep people from clicking off this video, yes, my opinion of this movie has changed. It's gone up dramatically. I think because I'm a lot less spoiled than I used to be. But I found myself enjoying this movie a lot more this time around than I did the first time, simply because it is such a fun throwback, a fun throwback to the serialized drama of the 1930s and 40s. And one of my favorite series of cartoons is the Fleischer Superman cartoons. And there are so many visual cues from this
Yes.
These right here, the automatons, and you can even see they fly the same way that
Yep.
they did in the Superman cartoon.
Yep.
This movie's a blast. It is part Flash Gordon, part Superman, part the Mummy, because you get all that witty banter. And
Yep.
Jude Law and Gwyneth Paltrow are terrific in this movie.
Hmm.
They are just wonderful. I loved them.
I actually had a real problem with, maybe it was just the mood I was in, but I thought there were several times that Gwyneth Paltrow was a bit flat for the moment. Because look, I'm going to be honest with you about Gwyneth Paltrow. She has limitations as an
She
actor.
does.
She doesn't have a broad range of expressions, and so. But I think they like, that's me being really nitpicky. But her character, she gets about an 80%. Jude Law nails it. I mean, one of the things was just like, man, I know this movie didn't make any money, but so would have been great to see more Adventures of Sky Captain. Look, I think they have some second act problems. I think it does dip a little bit in the second act, Jason, but I do think it sticks the landing in a way. I think it's quite well. And there is nothing. It's not meant to be an original idea. It is drawing from in the previous part, and it's a love letter to those films. So, of course, the beats are going to be familiar tropes that we're used to, Jason. You know, and you could say, I looked at this film and went, you know what, I feel like Captain America, the First Avenger, probably drew some inspiration from this, because I've found some tonal similarities between that and First Avenger. First Avenger being done in 2011, of course, and this in 2004. But yeah, look, I think this film does hold up really well, and it was undeserving probably of the criticism at the time. I don't know if it was a release date thing, Jason, or it just wasn't hitting the zeitgeist at the right moment. But I reckon if you'd released this film a few years earlier or later, probably would have been a big smash.
I agree. I think it was a number of things. I think sometimes that if a movie is released, I don't know, at a time that the public just isn't feeling it, it's not going to work out. And something like this, that was such a dramatic throwback to the serialized adventures of, 50, 60 years ago, just for some reason, it just did not hit there. There was also some controversy because this movie resurrected a deceased celebrity in a cameo, and that was Sir Laurence Olivier.
Who is credited.
Yes, he is credited, and he plays Dr. Totenkopf. And apparently it was Jude Law's dream to do a scene with him, and this was Jude Law, getting that dream come true. I honestly didn't think it was bad. I thought it was kind of cool.
Yeah, I did too, but I can imagine the family not being happy because, like, you've got him up there. That's old archival footage, and they hired another actor to do the lines.
Yeah,
so it's really only the likeness of Laurence Olivier.
Did they not get the family's permission to do that?
I'm sure. Well, actually, I don't know. I don't know
either.
I don't know, but
if they didn't, then it's problematic because that is exploitive. But if they did get the family's permission to do that, I don't know. I hope one day, whenever I'm dead, 50 or 60 days
I'll
do
your voice, Chase.
Yeah, you do my voice. Put up a
yeehaw!
Yeehaw! I'm from Texas. All right. Watch me as I do a bad Australian accent. Look at me. I think I'm a lot more funny than what I really am. Yeah, you have my permission. That's fine.
Yeah, but I think it would have been more tasteful to go and a special appearance. Well, and thank you to the family for letting us use the likeness of Laurence Olivier. It's quite deceptive to say Laurence Olivier was in this movie.
But he was.
I think, anyway.
He was.
But to the audience, aren't you? I mean, you're not clearly explaining yourself to the audience, are you?
Yeah.
You're like titling him next to Giovanni Ribisi. Like, it's a little bit different.
Well, technically, Abraham Lincoln is in Halloween 4. I mean, he's there. He's on a picture in the background, but he is in the movie. So they're not exactly lying.
I know, but I don't think that's a fair comparison at all, to be honest with you.
Okay. Well, to Halloween 4's credit, they didn't give him any lines.
No, the return of
Michael Moore scoring 7 years ago.
I've seen that at the cinema. I saw that one at the cinema. Anyway, back to this
Future
one, which is
episode.
kind of delightful. Giovanni Ribisi, I mentioned him before. He's so good in this film. I like that actor very much. I've always thought he was very talented, and he's great at. What's his name? Rex. Yeah. And Dax, isn't it? Dex.
Yes, it's Dex.
We are awful.
Shot
We
it.
did our research. No, look, he was really great. Jude Law just oozes that kind of leading man, 1940s kind of hero pilot, and he is perfection, I think, in this movie. And I said, like I said earlier,
born to play this part.
why didn't we get more Sky Captain Adventures? I thought it was there. Also, big shout out to Angelina Jolie, who's doing almost borderline cringe English accent, but she just pulls it off. But I love her no matter what, so it was good to see her.
Angelina Jolie, this is the only picture we have of her.
Yeah.
Angelina Jolie was in this movie so little, and she was advertised as such a big part of it. And I swear they probably just caught her while she was on her way to the bathroom. Like, excuse me, Miss Jolie, can you put this eye patch on and say these words? Oh, very well, but only if I can say it in an English accent. Okay, go ahead. Hello there, Dex. Oh, God. That's okay. Go ahead.
There we go. I found the other one.
Oh, there she is. Okay.
I get the feeling that all at a party, and he's like, you really should come down and film this movie. And she kind of agreed to it. But she's fun nonetheless.
She is fun.
I would say I tried watching this again the other day because I'm watching it going, the color palette's really interesting to me in this film.
It's very sepia.
What they did, you know what I feel like they did? Do you remember back in the late 80s with Turner? Ted Turner was a TCN network, and he started to colorize famous Hollywood movies.
Yes.
Much to the chagrin of people like George Lucas, Martin Scorsese. It was a big
George
controversy.
Lucas not liking people changing movies? What happened to him?
Yes, I know. 10 years later, he's like, I'll do what I want. Nevertheless, it does give that vibe. It looks like a black and white film that's been colorized and on purpose. And I appreciated that. It also looks gorgeous if you turn off the color.
It is. I mean, it's gorgeous with the color. It's gorgeous without the color. It's just such a unique, wonderful looking movie. I mean, if you have problems with the plot or not, you cannot deny that Sky Captain in the World of Tomorrow looks like no other movie has looked since the 1930s. And it's just great. I love it.
It also has a really strong 1930s Orson Welles element to it, because a lot of the photography and a lot of the shots feels like this guy watched Citizen Kane on repeat because of the twirling camera, the very low angles, the like transitions, the way you can see a figure in the background as news slides are going across. It's just so wonderfully steeped in that era. And that, Jason, is a fantastic sequence.
It really is. And I loved the Flappy Bird planes.
They're
so impractical, but that is something that somebody who was making a serial in the 1930s would have done.
Exactly.
Like, let's have a Flappy Bird plane.
Even with the giant automaton robots, the way Sky Captain first stops them is by shooting a cable to two buildings and basically just stops them. That's all that happens. Yeah. Nothing else happens. And then he gets one to trip over.
We are a 4-story tall robot, and there is a rope in the way. What do we do? Computing.
And I think the other issue with a film like this, if this film was made today, the audience wouldn't have been so hyper focused on the special effects and all that kind of thing, because we're just used to it in this day and age, you know what I mean? So we get more focused then on the story. This maybe would have been a little bit better compositing wise if they'd done it today, because there are some sequences where you go, oh, Gwyneth, you are so on a green screen right now. And it's especially in the automaton moment where she's running through the legs.
Oh, yes, where she's obviously on a treadmill, yes.
Yeah, it
or she's just running in place
great.
Like, just think of the paycheck, just think of the paycheck, just think of the paycheck. I should sell placenta tea.
But, I mean, I think we're being nitpicky to something that, like, if you're not with it even at this moment, Jason, when these titles seem, if you're not like, okay, I get what this is straight away, I don't think you really are going to enjoy it. But it's just such a strong love letter. And what's the most interesting, and I think the real goat of this movie has got to be the composer.
Yes.
This is a wonderful soundtrack.
Great theme. Yeah. I was humming it after it was over. Yeah. Da 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 da.
Great
copyright strike.
Yeah.
Copyright strike.
Edward Shearer actually did it. And what's interesting about him, he only really ever did 4 scores for movies, which was, you won't guess the other one, so I'm not going to ask you to guess because they're so different from Sky Captain. His next 2 scores were for both Charlie Angels movies,
which had good scores, I gotta admit.
Yeah,
I'm a fan.
I'm definitely a fan of the first one. Maybe the second one goes a bit ridiculous.
A little bit,
That's
but I enjoyed
Mick G with way too much cocaine. And then his last one that he did, well, not his last one, because Charlie's Angel, Miss Congeniality.
I never saw that one.
It's actually quite delightful, that film. Yeah. It's actually quite good. But either way, fantastic score, on point. And it's not just the hook, Jason. It's the slow moments that he does it really well. And what's really smart is they let the music really drive the story, and that's obviously influenced by people like George Lucas and Spielberg, where they really loved classical type of scores and help letting that drive the plot along. So yeah, I mean, look, I think it's a film you're either going to appreciate it, or if you don't get it or go, oh, it looks old timey, don't think you're going to get much out of it. But if you were at any stage in your life, you've watched films of the 30s and 40s and 50s, and like, you're going to have a blast. You're going to have a good time.
I agree. It's a movie unlike any you're going to see in a very long time. If I was to say the closest modern movie that it resembles is actually Indiana Jones. And I'm talking about the good ones, the good Indiana Jones movies, because it has the banter, it has the likable, roguish hero. It has the Kate Capshaw type leading lady. And it's all just a gigantic, ridiculous adventure, but they're having fun with it. And it looks beautiful. There's so much about this movie that I enjoyed. I'm going to watch it again. I really
I do too. And then again, hats off to that director for getting that tone right, because that tone you just described is something a lot of movies strive for and never get. That kind of banter, that kind of word. I don't know what Paddle Cat thinks of it, but she's just sneaking her head over. What's he saying?
Who's that? Let me disapprove of you. Yes, disapproval communicated.
I feel shame. Yeah, look, I don't know what else to say. Go watch it. Go check it out. I had to get it through Amazon Prime here. I had to rent this one. It was hard to find here in Australia. How would they find it streaming here?
How did I watch it? I think I saw it. Oh, HBO Max. It was on HBO Max. Yes.
Wonderful. I actually owned the DVD once upon a time before I did my massive purge. I actually owned it and it did get on repeat quite a lot. Back in the days where they had awesome director's commentaries and they'd actually spend money on behind the scenes.
I miss the fun animated menus. I miss all that stuff.
The Easter eggs, Jason. If you click the menu a certain way, you'll open up a special clip. I used to love that stuff.
Yes.
But yeah, like it's.
Oh my gosh, it's Gwyneth Paltrow's harvesting placenta tea.
Okay, here's a question.
This will cure everything.
This is a good question for you. Could they do a sequel today?
Yes.
I think Jude Law could do it.
Jude Law could do it. Gwyneth Paltrow, if you so desired, she could come back. Giovanni Ribisi could come back. I'm such a big fan of Giovanni Ribisi. He needs more stuff. I was happy to see him in Avatar. I was just like, it's my boy Giovanni. I love him. Angelina Jolie could come back. I would love to see Sky Captain in the world of tomorrow.
And the design, Jason, is actually cohesive to make them look a little bit younger, because everything's got the soft focus, haven't it?
Yeah,
of the movies of the period.
It's like they put Elizabeth Taylor back in front of the camera and they smeared it with Vaseline.
Exactly. But that was the style at the time.
Yep.
That was the style.
They can't see my wrinkles. Smear some Vaseline.
You know what? Can I just say, out of all the great great, before we end it, the shots out of this movie, and there is some, you could pause at any time and that could be a screensaver for you. There's one little moment where right at the beginning where Polly meets the professor in a cinema, and there's a shot with them face to face, and behind them, the Wizard of Oz is playing.
I loved it so much.
And I was just going, boom, there you go.
Right
You've just
there.
told the audience what this film is.
Yes.
And it was absolutely brilliant. So,
my favorite moment, I'm not going to spoil it in case you haven't seen the movie, but the last line. The very last line. I thought, what a perfect way to end this movie. That and just the reaction after saying that line, just cut to black. I loved it. I loved it that they ended it on such a funny note.
Yeah, and non-traditional. That was the one non-traditional thing, was just giving you something that you weren't expecting right at the end. And
because it was going to be one of those very cliched, very lovey, isn't that adorable? And they completely pulled the rug out from underneath you and turned it into this amazingly timed comedic ending, and I loved it.
Yeah, and it's a good point, is pay attention to the lines, the banter between those two, because if you really focus on it, there is some unbelievable funny stuff. There was a moment where she was trying to drill him about he was trying to get her to say something about the vials, I believe. And she goes, "Oh, I did sabotage your plane." And he goes, "Yes." "Oh, no, whether he'd had an affair with Angelina Jolie." And he goes, "Yeah, 3 months." And I just lost it.
"I did sabotage your plane. I knew it."
yeah, I had it for 3 months. Yeah. Anyway, great film, awesome time. Highly recommend. Definitely highly recommend. I think Jason agrees with that.
Same here.
All right, well, we're going to go to something very tonally different next week, Jason.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit.
And you're not going to, because I'm a massive, we've talked about this franchise, a massive fan of the franchise. This movie missed me, and I'm excited to say I'm going to be watching it for the first time coming up next week, and that is Evil Dead Rise.
I named this movie one of my top 10 of 2023. That's how much I loved it.
I didn't see it. So I'm delighted to know that next week we will be doing that. And then also next week, when we talk about that, we'll have a special announcement of the next series of films we're going to tackle.
Yes, we're going after another established horror genre, shared universe, multiverse thing.
Kind of, yeah. Yes, absolutely. And it'd be fair to say some highs and lows, but a lot of highs. So
yes, comment what you think it might be.
Yes, I would love to know. Yes, let us take a guess.
Take a guess.
Now, in between our fortnightly retrospective series, we also do films that have been recommended to us. That's where you guys have the power, especially those you involved in Patreon, can tell us what we can be watching next. And so give them the pitch, Jason. Why should they be joining?
My
Patreon.
Goodness. Why should you not enjoying Patreon? Enjoying Patreon. Enjoying. I've made up a new word. I think that's an old word just with a new meaning. You should join our Patreon because all the money goes to a good cause. And you get to help us choose which movies we review on the VHS Vault. And if you got a movie you want me to review on Jason Watches, or a TV show you want me to suffer through, like Velma season 2. Sorry,
nobody asked you to do that.
Nobody asked me to do that. I did that to myself. There were some clamps involved. I'm just saying, I was wearing them the entire time. It was ecstasy. Anyway, there is information about how to join our Patreon in the video description below. For as little as $5 a month, you can support this channel, and you can get exclusive content from people like me. Not him, but me.
Yeah, I'm just here for the ride.
Yep. Whew. And we are about to hit another milestone, by the way. We are about to hit 20,000 YouTube followers. So to everyone who is subscribing to this stupid channel and our stupid content, thank you. And we will see you at 20,000.
See you then.
I cannot believe 20,000 people want to watch this garbage.
There's a lot of unhealthy people out there. What can I say?
I watch